So.
All right, good evening, everyone. Today, welcome to the Select Board meeting for the Town of Wenham. It is July 21st, 2026 at 6:30 p.m. And we'll start with call to order. We'll just say who's here. Gary, start with you.
Gary Cheeseman.
Finn Sprague.
Deirdre Parati, present.
Peter Clyde.
Ben Timon.
All right, we have a full house tonight. Good to see everybody. And we will start with public comment. If there's anyone present in the room or on Zoom who would like to comment on anything that is not on the agenda this evening, please raise your hand. Nope. Anybody on Zoom?
No.
Okay. All right, we will move then to reports and announcements. Steve, do you want to start off?
Thank you. Just two updates this evening. One on the 1A traffic improvement project. So all the deeds were, all the easements were filed successfully at the Registry of Deeds. So those are in place and the project is moving forward. I also want to just communicate a message that the state DOT gave us, that they said that they have, a lot of projects going on right now, but that the town of Wenham was the most professional and timely community that they've dealt with in this round of projects. So kudos to our land use department, where they were the primary driver of this project. And then just a quick trash update. So we still don't have the contract finalized. It's going back and forth between the attorneys. However, we believe the last round of revisions, we should have it back tomorrow. Again, they're not really material in my opinion. It's just very small wording tweaks. But we're very close on that. We have 30 people now have expressed interest in getting a second 96-gallon tote. Only 5 have paid for it, so only 5 have gone out so far. And we have we've distributed the entire batch of 50 smaller bins and anticipate maybe another 5 to 10 more of those. So we've put in an order for more of those. Again, that's included in the cost. It'll cover the smaller bins. And so yeah, and actually an interesting note is the Maples got 55 96-gallon bins delivered to them, asked for all of them to be taken back. And in exchange, they wanted 16 smaller bins. So they only want 2 bins per building up there, 2 smaller. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But yeah, that's the update so far. I mean, generally, we still get questions and some comments, but I think for the most part, things are going pretty smoothly. That's all I have today.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Good progress as usual. I just have one note that Gary and I attended the Eagle Court of Honor for Patrick Crockett on Friday evening, and I just want to congratulate Patrick and his family. It was a wonderful, really wonderful, lovely ceremony. Patrick did beautifully, and it was a thrill to be part of it. So congratulations to all of the Crockett's. All right, who's next? Finn, anything?
No, let's see. Hope everybody had a good time down at the, was able to go down to the Tall Ships event in Boston. That was great. And maybe was able to go to the Tea House and go to the World Cup. Wow, so
Nice.
Those were both really enjoyable things. So thanks.
Excellent.
I'm good. Good.
Good.
I did go to the twice.
To the Tea House?
No, to the Tall Ships.
Oh, to the Tall Ships?
Pretty amazing.
My only comment is just to sort of add to the commendation to Steve and the DPW and the whole team on the trash receptacles. I'm not sure if everybody in our town has had the same experience, but just as a homeowner, I had a very good experience with a request to downsize the bin, and that was done very quickly and smoothly. And I've certainly heard a lot of anecdotes from other towns that are going through this similar transition. that things aren't quite as smooth in some neighboring towns. So, good job.
Thank you, Ben.
I'll let Rich know. He's
Yes, absolutely.
happy to hear that.
Okay, next we will move to the consent agenda. We have 2 items on the consent agenda this evening. A Wenham Housing Authority appointment of Sharon Ivy, effective July 21, 2026 through June 30, 2031. And the sponsorship request from the Community House of $1,600 in support of Sundays in Patton Park, which I saw were in full swing on Sunday. Looked very well attended. Does anyone have any questions on the consent agenda? Okay.
I move to approve items A and B as printed in this evening's consent agenda.
Second.
All right, we'll take a vote. Start with Gary.
Yes.
Finn, aye.
Deirdre, aye.
Peter, yes?
Ben, I. We can decide if we're doing ayes or yeses. I guess it's the diversity of the.
You can
Vote.
choose, yes. Okay, the first item on the agenda this evening is our joint meeting with the Historic District Commission. We have one coming in now. Good timing. Bonnie, come on up. Yeah. Okay, we are meeting and I know we have a few people on Zoom.
Yes.
So we are meeting with the Historic District Commission regarding the HDC's request to add a demolition delay bylaw to the 2027 town meeting warrant. We will have a presentation and a discussion about the rationale and the proposed stipulations of the draft bylaw. So does the HDC have a quorum this evening? And Kelly, would you like to call your meeting to order?
Yes, thank you.
Kelly, just to let you know, Bonnie is here, so we do have 4 members for a quorum, so you can do a call to order now for the HDC.
Okay, just so you guys know, it's very hard to hear you guys. It's very scratchy. But anyways, I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Wenham Historic District Commission. Today is July 21st, 2026. The time now is 6:37. Will you starting with Bonnie, can you please go around and state your name for the record?
Bonnie Anderson, present.
Lisa Bannicky, present.
Ryan Malloy, present.
Thank you. Those are the 4 members so far. We have a quorum, though.
Great, thank you. Kelly, I'll turn it over to you or to Joe for the presentation.
Okay, my video has been turned off, or I can't turn it on, but anyways, I'd like to, Joe, do you want me to present?
Or Kelly,
would
if it
you like
works,
to
I'm
present?
happy to go over the slides real quick, and then you can fill in anything I miss or anything you want to add, but it's totally up to you.
Sure.
Okay, so thank you, Select Board, Madam Chair. Appreciate you having us here tonight. I've been serving as the liaison for the HDC and the Historical Commission for almost 4 years now, and I believe this is the first time we've had a joint meeting with the Select Board and the Historical Commission, so this is a great night. So as many of you might know, Wenham has considered demolition delay bylaw for last 15 years or so. The Historical Commission has reviewed past discussions, examined how other Massachusetts communities approach demolition delay, and we have prepared this draft as a starting point for discussion. And I just want to emphasize that we're hoping to get this on the warrant for next year, so there's plenty of times to go through different drafts and talk about it, but this is sort of the initial document we put together. It's also important to... It's also important to note that we're presenting this proposal under our Historical Commission authority. The Wenham's Commission serves as both the Historic District Commission and the Historical Commission. The HDC administers a local historic district under Chapter 40C MGL, which governs historic districts. Because this bylaw would apply town-wide and is intended to address historically significant buildings that are not already protected by the historic district, this falls under the umbrella of the Historical Commission. So I just wanted to point that out. And we can actually get started with the presentation here. So again, we're here just to, the HEC is here just to introduce, the Historical Commission is here to introduce the proposed demo delay. They are going to be providing a background on the proposal and its purpose, explain how the process would work, and of course, receive select board feedback and discuss next steps. And the concept of the bylaw has been discussed, as I said, for quite a while now, and that we're going to talk about it tonight and just go through the first draft. Again, this just talks about the umbrella of the Historical Commission, which I already talked about. We can go to the next one, Michelle. Thank you. And this is the Historical Commission, as I mentioned. It's charged with advising on preservation matters throughout the community, maintaining awareness of the historic resources townwide, and may administer preservation tools such as the demolition delay bylaw. So what is a demolition delay bylaw? It's a preservation planning tool, and it is used to create a process to review demolition of historically significant buildings before they are permanently lost. The purpose is this is an important note, to encourage preservation, not prohibit demolition. This simply allows time to explore different alternatives, preserve significant historic resources where possible, while also balancing private property rights for residents as well. Demolition delay, again, does not prevent demolition permanently. It just would create a temporary hold on demolition. And as you'll see soon, this is going to be, the HEC is proposing 9-month demolition delay bylaw. The proposed bylaw would only apply to buildings that meet these two criteria. The first would be age requirement, and this would be 80 years old or older. The Historical Commission had looked at different communities across the state, and many had 75 years, others had 100 years, 150 years. They thought this was sort of a good median to have the 80-year rule. The second criteria is historical significance. This would be determined by the Historical Commission. Some of the factors, although they don't need to all be considered, but some factors to be considered might be the property being on the National Register of Historical Places, association with significant people or events within town and beyond, architectural significance, and contribution to Wenham's history and character. This is laid out in more depth in the actual document, but there's sort of just 4 steps that sort of outlay the process. The first would be a demolition permit submitted. So this would be somebody looking to demolish a specific property. Number 2 would be Historical Commission review. This would be where the commission would determine whether the building is historically significant, like I was explaining on the previous slide. The third step would be a public hearing. And again, this would only be if the Historical Commission had deemed the property to be historically significant. After this, within 14 days, the Historical Commission would they would give their own ruling on whether or not there should be a demo delay put in place. And if this is put in place, this would be delayed up to 9 months. Again, 9 months, similar to the criteria for the age of the buildings. Many cities and towns across the Commonwealth had 12-month delays. Some had 6 months. The Historical Commission thought that 9 months was sort of a happy medium. I don't want to speak I don't want to speak for the commission, but I feel like they would be willing to talk about the 9 months, but this is sort of the time period they came up with and had a consensus with. Next slide, please. The delay period provides time to work with property owners, the Historical Commission itself, CPC if necessary, town officials and stakeholders, preservation organizations such as we dealt with one for 9 Maple, Historic New England to be an example, and interested buyers as well during this 9 months. These are just some potential alternatives that could be put in place. You could rehabilitate the building, preserving the historical facade to the building without demolishing it, adaptive reuse to a different project, or incorporating the building into a bigger development, a redevelopment as well, all while keeping the building in its historic nature. And also relocation would be another option, or a sale to someone that has a preservation-minded buyer. Again, similar, an example would be Historic New England from a couple weeks ago involving 9 Maple Street. So what does the Historical Commission propose to the Select Board? They propose continuing to refine the draft that was put together, incorporating all feedback from the Select Board as well as residents, do a public outreach, gather community input, explain the purpose and processes of the bylaw, work with town council to ensure consistency with Massachusetts law. And finally, putting this on hopefully for the 2027 annual town meeting warrants. And I'm open this up to questions, but if you're okay with this, Madam Chair, I was going to ask if the Historical Commission had anything to add, any color they want to add to my presentation.
Hi, this is Kelly, Chair of the HDC. I'd like just to add a few comments here. The demo delay law has been in the works since Harriet Davis was the chair. I believe it was first initiated in 2015. But I've been trying to get it on the warrant for the last year or so. It was not suggested that we put it on the warrant for last year. So hopefully, sorry, the background noise sounds really funny. So hopefully it will get approval to be put on the warrant. Again, this is not to deter demolition. It's just to support the 45 existing homes that are designated as historic houses within the district. We're the only surrounding town that doesn't have a demo delay law. Hamilton does, Beverly does, Danvers does, Topsfield does. So I hope you'll support us with this moving forward.
Thank you. Any other HDC members who'd like to comment first? Okay, I'm going to move it over to the select board. And yes, we did receive this last year as the proposal for the warrant, but my recollection was that we did not have an opportunity to meet together, and the select board still had questions about some of the rationale. So some of that you just spoke to, but I'll start with a question, because you mentioned the surrounding towns. I'm just wondering, across Massachusetts, how typical do most towns have this? What is the prevalence across the state?
I don't know what percentage it is, but most towns do have a demo delay law.
Yeah, there's 155 or so towns and cities that have demo delays, and I want to say there's about half of them have one, maybe a little bit less, but I want to say around half of them. And again, there's 155 cities and towns with historic districts that have with historic districts. Around half of those have demo delays.
Okay, so about half of the 155?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's what I was looking
There's
for.
160 out of 351 as of 2024.
Okay, and I'm wondering if you looked at sort of what the experience is with the demo delay and how successful those bylaws have been in sort of repurposing and preserving.
Sorry, you're cutting out. Can you repeat, please?
Yep, the question is, did you take a look at how successful these bylaws have been in terms of repurposing the properties and preserving them? Just wondering what the impact of the bylaws have been.
I do know in Danvers there was one property that did not get demolished. I could get you numbers on other towns. I'm happy to do that. I do not know exactly the numbers on that. I don't know if Kelly does, but I can certainly look into that.
I think it would be helpful to know the impact, and when it comes time for the public to vote on this, these kinds of questions, I think, will be useful for the public to understand as to why we're doing this and what the impact will be. I know one other question, and then I'll open it to my colleagues, was could you talk a bit about why you settled on 80 years? Because I guess I'm wondering, that doesn't take us that far back in history. So sort of what's the rationale for that number, other than it's sort of a median between other towns?
Or Joe, do you want to answer how we ended up on that?
Yeah, I mean, we did research different towns, and again, a lot of them had 100 years, 150 years. We sort of wanted to create the least controversial number that we could, so we sort of picked one in the middle. That was honestly, correct me if I'm wrong, Kelly, that was the biggest rationale. We didn't want to
Yes.
have something that was too restrictive. Is that correct?
Yeah, and also we were just trying to tie it back to date, so like no homes built before 1945. So it was sort of that's what we were sort of targeting, a time frame of houses built. So anything before 80 years ago, essentially. So any homes basically built before 1945 could not be torn down without the demo delay law taking effect.
All right, thank you. I'm going to open it up to the other members of the board.
No questions here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I echo what you were saying there. If this is going to go in front of the entire town, I think a good one-pager on with this sort of information is going to be really important to help people make a decision as they vote. The things that were going through my mind were the similar ones. What you had was, in Wenham, what percentage of the houses are over 80 years? I think it's a pretty significant portion. So, what percentage of folks and houses are going to be delayed on this? Another questions I had was, the quantity of demolitions that we are actually having in our town in any given year, right? If there are not that many happening, or if there's a significant amount, I don't recall seeing a lot of houses being demoed around here, but I'm not going down every single road every single week. The statistics, it's really helpful to know and understand that all the towns around us have that same this demo delay, but it'd be good to have the statistics that we were just talking about, the percentage of towns that do in Massachusetts, and our neighbors to understand what it is. I'm trying to think about the impact to the town that maybe people don't understand or don't appreciate, and that would be helpful. What's the reason that we haven't done this to date, or the argument against this? I'm trying to think about the structures that I think are going to be demoed in the next 2 or 3 years. We've had a lot of discussion here about Cherry Street, and we have a whole lot going on over at Penguin Hall. So I wonder what other structures we can think of. Having an additional 9-month delay on what they're doing. So thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Peter? Ben?
Just a couple of questions. So in the packet, and thank you, Joe and Kelly, for the presentation. In our packet, there is what appears to be a draft bylaw. Is that
Correct. That's the ones the Historical Commission drafted
okay?
earlier.
All right. And so, excuse me, is it the case that that this particular draft is still potentially the subject for discussion before it's put forward for town meeting, or is this is the proposed bylaw that the Historical Commission has approved at this point?
The Historical Commission did vote on this draft, but Kelly, I don't know if you want to speak to that, if the commission would be hypothetically willing to revisit some of the content.
Yes, of course, we'd be, willing to take in more input from the community as well as the committee to make any edits as needed. We haven't done a focus group with the town yet.
Thank you. And I'm not suggesting that I have any particular edits to it. I just wanted to make sure I understood that this was the actual draft that's been approved at this stage. And then the other question I had is the slideshow says that there will be 2 criteria for triggering the demo delay. Number 1, that the building is 80 years old or older. And number 2, that there'll be a determination by the Historical Commission as to historical significance. So does that mean that any homeowner who wants to demo their 80-year or older home would need to go in front of the Historical Commission for a meeting or a hearing of some kind at which the second criteria, the determination of historical significance, would occur?
So yeah, the first step would be applying for the permit with the building inspector, And then after 7 days, the building inspector would send a written notice. Within 7 days, he or she would send a written notice to the Historical Commission, and they would meet within 30 days to discuss whether or not they feel it is a significant building or not.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right now, it was, I don't know if it was from Harry or not, but there was 45 designated homes that are deemed within Wenham as historically significant. So I don't know if there's a list in the archive somewhere that we can pull that up.
Yeah, it should be on, I would think Macris might have this, the local, the state registry of historical places, which I can certainly look into.
Doesn't the town have a document?
Yes, the town
Gary?
is adopted.
Yeah,
But that's not going to be the only criteria, whether you're on the list or not.
Yes.
The commission could still determine on architectural or other history that it's significant.
so it's not restricted to the 45 houses?
That is correct. That is correct.
Okay.
But typically houses that have, are within or in the Macros database.
Thank you. I didn't have any other questions.
Thank you, Ben. Okay, so I think, I'm going to try to summarize, but I think what I'm hearing is that the board is open to including this on the warrant and putting this before the town for the town to decide. But we're suggesting some of these questions be clarified and some additional information be prepared to educate the town on, in a little more in depth on what the rationale and why we should be doing this.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I just wanted to clarify, there's about 150 cities and towns in the state that have demo delays.
That have demo delays.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry if I misspoke.
That's okay. Thank you, Joe. Okay, so I think that's where we're at. Joe, you have our comments and questions?
Yes, absolutely. We're going to be meeting again the next month or two, so.
Okay. So we'll look forward to seeing this return again. And is the plan to do, what is the plan for public outreach?
Yeah, I'm imagining there'll be probably several public meetings just about this, but we're obviously going to invite public comment. And I can imagine maybe even having another joint meeting perhaps as we get closer to finalizing the document, just to make sure the select board gets all their questions answered and we're all on the same page. And I'm sure you can use our social media platforms to put this up out there as well, the town website perhaps.
Great.
But, Instagram, X, and Facebook.
News,
Yep.
yes. Yes, and thank you. We appreciate you starting this process and raising this early on so that we can be ready in time for April with a really sound proposal with all the questions for the public answered. Okay, so the next item is also with the Historic District Commission, and we will have an update on the revision of the Historic District Guidelines project that was funded through the capital appropriation at the 2026 annual town meeting.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Do you mind pulling up the second one, Michelle? Thank you. So this time we're at, the Historic District Commission will be using that title for this project. So this actually dates back quite a few years as well. The current historic district guidelines that are in place have not been updated since 1999. So this project has been a long time in making as well. Next slide, please. So the Wenham Historic District was established in 1972, and it's one of the town's most significant historic resources. Some of the iconic community landmarks in the historic district include the building we're in right now, Town Hall, the Main Street Cemetery, and Civil War Memorial, among others. The Historic District Guidelines' purpose is to assist homeowners, contractors, architects, et cetera, by providing guidance for projects within the historic district. This would just be for exterior work in the historic district that's viewable in the public way. Again, they have not been updated since 1999. So why update the guidelines? The Historic District Commission identified several opportunities to improve the existing guidelines. Here's just a few of these examples. Modernizing a document that's over 25 years old, improving organization, ease of use for both residents, contractors, and staff members and board and committee members alike, adding photographs, graphics, and visual Examples, if you saw the ones in your packet, you can see it's quite rudimentary. There's not a lot of color to them, literally, not a lot of graphics, and we're trying to incorporate a lot more to that. Expanding the guidance regarding Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40C. 40C is the law that governs historic districts in Massachusetts. The HCC operates under the umbrella of Chapter 40C. Better explain common project types and review standards, whether that's putting in a fence or creating a bigger addition. Addressing newer materials and sustainability initiatives. I know solar has been sort of a hot topic the last several years. The commission has since approved several solar projects. There's even one approved here, the upper lot, if you recall, although it's on hold because we're a leach field problem, but that was also approved through the HDC. So solar has been sort of before the HDC several times in the last few years. Next slide, please. Just a little bit of background on the funding. A $50,000 capital improvement project was requested by me through the HDC. The funding request was supported by both the FinCom and the Select Board and was approved at the 2025 ATM, Annual Town Meeting. And consistent with the requirements of MGL Chapter 30B, the town conducted a competitive procurement process, and we received proposals from 3 very qualified consulting firms. Following proposal reviews, interviews, and reference checks with myself, Kelly Schmidt, Steve assisted as well, the commission unanimously selected Barrett Planning Group to complete the design guidelines rewrite. They're a very renowned preservation group and planning group throughout the state. The commission has been working closely with Jennifer Dotery. She is a preservation planner who specializes in historic districts. She works with Barrett Planning Group, and she is serving as the project manager. And again, this is some of her experience, but she's also worked with the Massachusetts Historical Commission on the state level. Some of the work that's been completed thus far, there's been a kickoff meeting with Barrett Planning Group. Jen was actually in town a few weeks ago and conducted several photographs, many photographs throughout the historic district. There's been a review of the existing guidelines, which again are quite out of date, and comparable guidelines from other Massachusetts communities. Sorry, it's one more before it. It's okay. There's been interviews with town staff and board and committees. Some of you might have met with Jen in the last week or so on Zoom, but she was meeting with board and committee members, town staff, just to identify current strengths, challenges, and opportunities for improvement with the guidelines. So what's next on the horizon? Barrett Planning Group will continue community outreach, and there will be a public information session, which everyone is encouraged to go to on Wednesday, August 12th at 6 p.m. This will be on Zoom. This will provide residents an opportunity to comment on the project, ask questions, offer feedback that will help shape the final design guidelines. And following this public engagement, Barrett Planning Group and the HDC will, again, incorporate public feedback, continue commission review of the draft, complete final design guidelines, and present the finished guidelines for Historic District Commission adoption. This will not require town meeting approval like it did for the demo delay. The funding was approved at town meeting, but this is not technically a bylaw change like the demo delay would be. And expected project outcomes, once it's completed, this will provide a modern, illustrated, a much more user-friendly document, offer clear guidance to homeowners, contractors, and design professionals. It'll improve consistency and transparency in Historic District Commission decisions, better reflect current preservation best practices, and help preserve Wenham's historic district character. And it'll also set a valuable resource for the community for hopefully many years to come. I didn't write this on the slide, but I think another good thing about this will be potentially avoiding any kind of litigation. If there's any ambiguity with the district guidelines, with the decisions, this just helps, I think, tighten up the restrictions, the guidelines, and avoids any sort of liability, which we're trying to avoid, obviously.
Good stuff.
Yeah, and final slide is just project timelines. Again, this was approved in 2025. Barrett Planning has already been selected as the vendor. Site photography has already been done. One of the workshops will be done next month, and the final design guidelines are expected to be completed in fall and winter. And is there any comment from the HDC that I missed?
No, it was great. Thanks, Joe.
Great. Any other members of HDC like to comment? All right, I think this is a tremendously valuable project. I'm thrilled to see it moving forward. I think this is going to be a great contribution to the town. I want to turn it over to the board. Does anyone have comments or questions at this juncture?
No, just as you said, very important. It's been a long, long time since we've looked at this. So along with other departments, we need to bring it up to speed. Thanks to Joe, doing a lot of work on this.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Kelly.
I'm also looking forward to it. Thank you, Madam Chair. Looking forward to seeing the glossy pictures and the clarifications that we'll all have. I just, as I was going through the presentation on it, just to make sure I completely understood, it looks like the HDC has complete authority to adopt this document.
Yes.
And so it's not up, doesn't need a vote by the select board or any other. We're obviously going to be taking a lot of feedback from stakeholders in the town, but it's up to the HDC to approve this document and accept it, has the authority to do so.
That's correct. Funding was secured at town meeting via capital funding, but this is sort of an HDC. So, we're obviously looking to get feedback, but this is not a specific bylaw change. This is just sort of adopting new guidelines under the umbrella of the HDC. Under that chapter 40C that I had mentioned earlier.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that this is like, over the last 3 or 4 years, we've like cleaned up everything. And, like the HR policy that hadn't been updated for like 20 years. So I think it's really great. We're like crossing the T's and dotting the I's on stuff. And to the extent that we can limit any liability or just create, it's really good. So congrats to the HTC and Joe.
Thank you.
I agree. Nothing to add, though.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Very well done.
Thank you.
As always. All right, HDC, we appreciate you being here. Any last comments before I give you time to adjourn?
Nothing from me. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Bonnie?
Nope, thank you. Glad to be here.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Welcome, Ryan Malloy.
Thanks,
Our
Ryan.
newest member.
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful to see you here, Ryan.
Much appreciated. I look forward to get going on these projects.
Excellent. Bonnie?
Excellent work, Joe. Thank you for presenting. Thanks, Kelly, for leading us along. I have no additions.
Thanks, Bonnie.
All right, Kelly, over to you. Kelly, would you like to adjourn?
Oh, sorry, I didn't understand you. Yes, I'd like to adjourn. The time now is 7:08 p.m. I'd like to adjourn the meeting for the Wenham Historic District Commission. And second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Great.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Kelly, yeah. Thanks all from the HDC committee and to town Joe. Thank you very much for your presentation, and we will then be signing off. Appreciate it.
We'll see you for the next round.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to take just a moment to switch boards here. We're going to have the FinCom get settled, and the door to the outside is locked.
Oh.
You had a fob, Joe?
Yes.
David, you want to swap here? I can move over here, I guess. We'll see who's on this one.
Okay, we are about to Begin our joint meeting with the Finance and Advisory Committee. Do we have quorum?
I don't see Sarah up there.
Is Sarah on, Michelle?
Sarah?
We have a fourth member hopefully joining soon.
Actually, we are, well, all right, we're at 7:10, so actually, why don't we hold for 5 minutes? Because we scheduled it for 7:15, so we'll take another item, and then we'll see if Sarah is here.
That's the
We'll do that.
Yes, thank you. Do you want to do F?
Insurance.
Okay, so we will take F in the meantime, which is to review the draft policy outlining the town's insurance requirements for contracting with external vendors. Steve, I'll leave that to you.
So, last meeting, we brought before the board a suggestion and a request if the board would consider reducing its insurance requirements on certain contracts $10,000 and below. The board seemed to be supportive of that, given that they want to promote the town's ability to do business with small businesses, and that our insurance liability requirements for a small business was, in some cases, the annual premium was as much or more than the contract itself. So we did some due diligence and sourced some information from neighboring communities to see what they've done in situations like this. And we got some general feedback that pretty much aligned with each other, that and generally the reduction was $1 million umbrella policy, and in general and professional liability, $1 million per occurrence to $2 million in the aggregate. In addition, they waived the commercial motor vehicle insurance requirement if the person would provide in writing that they would not need transportation, such as we had a designer do the town's logo. It was a home occupation that didn't ever come on site and was a sole proprietor. The request to waive the motor vehicle requirement was not asked, but in addition to that, the one of the things that popped up in our diligence was that some communities waive the workman's compensation insurance if it's a sole proprietor. So that was discussed last time, and the board asked me to take a stab at writing a policy that would kind of provide a framework that we could operate under, both one providing, a formal statement of the town's insurance requirement at a high level, which we haven't made in any formal capacity. So that is in number one on the policy up on the board, to say that all town policies, basically must provide these insurance requirements to any vendors looking to do business with the town. But then in certain situations for policies that are low risk, so things not involving construction, heavy equipment, or physical hazards, and under $10,000, the town administrator would have the approval to reduce these insurance requirements. And all other contracts, the board would retain the right, although you don't need a policy for that, but would be able to either further reduce the insurance levels or reduce a contract that may be deemed higher risk. It did ask for us to go back to Meyer and see if they could give us some statistics. They did not have any statistics that would help us in this, but in general sense was, if they're not going to be on site working on the building or in the building within the town limits, it's professional in nature, such as office work, those are generally the ones that are low of liability, and that's what we included here.
Thank you, Steve. All right, questions, comments? Ben, nothing?
I thought this was great, Steve, because it kind of gives you the authority to work on this, right? And makes it clear where you can, reduce the insurance requirements proactively, and, put this in front of the smaller contract, go out with the RFPs and say, this is our policy, and, you don't have to wait for us or delay, right? You can just put this right out there with these and move forward. And so, this is exactly what we were talking about last time, and I'm in support of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gary?
I think it covers all the concerns we had last time, so I'm in favor of this.
Great. I agree with my colleagues, thank you. So,
Need a motion?
I think we need a motion.
Move to approve the Wenham vendor insurance requirements policy as written or amended.
Gary seconds.
All right, we'll start with Ben.
Ben votes aye.
Yes, Peter?
Ben?
Finn, aye.
Gary?
Yes.
And Deirdre, yes. Thank you. Motion passes. Okay. Sarah is here. Excellent. Perfect timing. Okay, so we will move back to item E, which is a joint meeting with Finance and Advisory Committee for a discussion of proposed FY27 finance-related goals and initiatives. We are going to discuss prioritization of the proposed goals with respect to the level of urgency, feasibility, and our staffing capacity, which is in fact limited. So Steve, Ernie, are we presenting the list?
Yeah, I think
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. I skipped that. Bob, would you like to call the FinCom to order?
we found Sarah?
Yes, we did.
Okay, great. Call to order of the FinCom and Advisory Committee at 7:17. I guess that we're still taking public comment. Is there any public comment?
Just call for, since you're split in person and on Zoom, just have everyone state that they're present.
Sarah, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
David?
David Doggett's here.
And Bob's here.
Great. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So we called a joint meeting tonight, and just a little background. So I met with the select board last meeting cycle, so 2 weeks ago, and brought to their attention that, we have a lot going on in the finance department and financial related goals and objectives that, have been brought up both in conversation and also, formal requests over probably the past 6 months or so. So as I'm compiling my lists of goals and objectives that the select board will be reviewing and at the end of August, I found that the finance goals is quite extensive. So basically I brought it to their attention that it's unlikely that we're going to be able to get to everything this year at least and be able to do it well. So they thought it was a good idea that we invite the FinCom in tonight to one, put out kind of the list that I've come up with thus far to make sure that I haven't missed anything. And then and further, I kind of took this as an opportunity for the two boards to, have a discussion. And, since Jeff left, I've met with the FinCom a few times through that public meeting. And, I kind of get the sense that the FinCom, feels like maybe the information isn't put in front of them either timely or in, they're maybe not consulted first. And it just seems like the play of events, I sense that there was some, maybe unhappy is maybe too strong of a word, but just that they weren't too thrilled, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, with how some of the things, the solar project, maybe the police request for additional officer. So I guess, staff and myself work, hard to accommodate the needs of all boards. So I figure we could take this an opportunity to, to kind of let people speak freely, kind of let us know what we're doing well, what we could do better. We can hear, the select board. Similarly, I took an opportunity to write an email of kind of what the roles are of both respective boards in a formal capacity, right? Some of it is just relationships and you kind of make it up as you go. But for what documentation was out there that kind of defined the roles of each board, because, you know, I get comments from the select board, does the FinCom need to weigh in on this? You know, what's the FinCom's role in town meeting? And then similarly, the FinCom, you know, what is the select board looking from us? You know, we should be included more, we should be included less, you know, just comments as people, it's like, you know, what are we exactly doing here? So that is kind of what I put together in that email. So I thought we could talk a little bit about that. But first, I figure we can kind of go through the list. I don't know if everybody wants me to go through one by one. Happy to do so. Or if people have any comments they'd like to make first, or items that maybe I missed.
We're happy to have comments first, if there anything. Bob?
Well, the only thing I would say is the comment about timing wasn't so much, wasn't the Finance and Advisory Committee, it was the Select Board and everyone that, you know, that some of these things came up very quickly, and, you know, we heard about it at the same time, but they were probably too quickly in terms of making a good decision. The other comment I would add is I think one of our interests is long-range planning in terms of being able to look at things that go multiple years out so that we've got some idea of how things fit together. The third comment was one I shared in terms of meetings, that our meeting on Wednesday after the select board meets isn't very helpful if you're looking for advice from us, so it might make sense to, we talked about this, of going on the odd week in between, so that if somebody has a question, we can work on it and get back with an answer.
Geez, Bob,
David, anything?
that makes too much sense.
Do we have the list up on the board?
Oh yeah, can you go to my email?
Yeah.
The email I sent? No, the one
It's in the
that's
packet, I think.
It's in the
Yep,
packet.
right. I think it's right there, right, Steve?
And
Yeah, so
just for
second one.
clarification, the list that you compiled includes, keep going, things that you have on your radar screen, Steve, things that you have heard from the select board and things that you have heard from the Finance and Advisory Committee. Is that correct? Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, and right, and just priorities that Ernie and I have discussed.
Right.
So yeah. And so again, I'll start at the top. I'll share, you know, maybe some thoughts that I have, and then, you know, maybe we can have discussion if needed or not. But, you know, ultimately, like Deirdre said, this meeting is to kind of compile a list, get some open discussion to help the select board, you know, understand the level of priority from everyone's perspective, so that when it goes into its goals and objective setting, and it's kind of carving out the capacity we have to do, you know, finance-related land use goals, it will help them make an educated decision.
Steve, could you maybe add how much effort's required in your judgment for some of these?
Yep.
I know you and I talked about one today. It was more work than I thought it was. And
Yeah, so I think that's health insurance, right, Bob?
Yep, right.
So we'll start at the top of the list as a good starting point. So health insurance is a request that came up, you know, and I'm not sure, just FinCom commented. I think the select board has made comments. I think everyone kind of knew last year or 2 years ago we had a double-digit increase, and it was kind of like, well, that can't happen again, but it did. So we're, you know, so I think that became a, you know, there was a sense of urgency to see what else could we do, and where a majority of our labor is union labor, so any change to benefits needs to be bargained for. We do have a mechanism in law that allows us to transition to the GIC, which is the state-run group insurance, and that may or may not be advantageous. So both from a cost perspective and from a personnel perspective, the general consensus is that the plans are not as rich in benefits and not necessarily any cheaper. Again, analysis would be able to prove that out. So to the extent the the labor cost of negotiating it and, making folks unhappy, I think is something that, would need to be weighed as far as the relationships we have with our staff. But the GIC, to do this, you need to form an insurance review committee. So it has to be formally appointed by the select board, and it has to be comprised of active retirees, union leadership from all our unions. I believe it may need a resident as well as committee representation to start the review process. So then once we start opening that up, you need, before you form that committee, you have to send formal letters, certified letters to all union members in the town to let them know that we're having this discussion. And then you have to form the committee, and then we can start analyzing. The general sense is you can do, more detailed than back of the napkin math, but you can take a look. Without going through this whole process, you can take a high-level look at what are the rates up at the GIC and what are the rates we have. And you'll see that the GIC is slightly less expensive for their, we're just kind of comparing like the richest plan to the richest plan. So like the best plan in the GIC to the best plan we offer. And the GIC is slightly less expensive, but what's been brought to my attention, and again, is through Maya, and obviously they have incentive to keep us with them, but to look at the deficit that the GIC runs every year, and the state just had to bail them out this year. So the expectation is that the state is going to stop bailing them out at some point, and then the rates are going to have to adjust to be able to balance their books. So right now, every year they operate at a loss. And then the state has to bail them out with a budget supplement. So anyways, that is something that, I don't think, if the plan was to go to the GIC and form the committee, that it's unlikely that we would be able to align that with this town meeting. But it is something that we probably could get started with, sending the letters, getting the leadership together, having meetings. I'm anticipating that these discussions would be relatively slow going. There's not a lot of incentive for the parties to, participate. So that would be a slow burn on that review. Fire review and ambulance, I'll group those two together. So we just had a pretty big retirement. Our deputy of 28 years, I believe, just recently retired. And I know the chief has made, some comments that he is looking to retire at some point in the nearish future. However, we don't know the timeline on that, but Hamilton has reached out to us in a couple different ways. One, I think, through the chairs, and I forwarded to David, and another way through their goal setting meeting that they had a couple weeks ago, and they're looking to connect with Wenham and look at the fire as, do some analysis on whether regionalizing a fire station is feasible. So, the first question is, does Wenham want to regionalize? And then the answer is, if the answer is yes, then, obviously you want to look at it. Or maybe we want to look at it if the answer is, no, just to understand how advantageous it could or could not be from a financial perspective. Yeah, I think it was in 2007, but the labor. So back then we had no full-time firefighters, and now we have 4. So that's a change. And I believe Hamilton was in a similar boat to us, is on call, and I believe that they are now just about full-time. I don't think they rely on call a lot. That study, although certainly it would be useful to help to see their, their methodology and the certain things they looked at would, the numbers would have to all be reworked because the labor pool, which is the biggest cost driver, has all changed. The ambulance analysis, so we put $250,000 into an ambulance, a vehicle stabilization fund in anticipation of replacing the ambulance. But before we replace the ambulance, we really need to figure out, do we want to keep the ambulance? We don't know. We haven't looked at it close enough to know whether it is a revenue generator, whether it's positive or negative from a revenue perspective for the town. So that's something we need to spend some time analyzing.
The money from Gordon.
We do. So Gordon pays us not only for the ambulance, but for
Fire as well, right?
yeah. So any response to Gordon, they pay us for the labor involved in that response.
Steve, the ambulance is also run out of the fire department budget as well, right?
That's
so those
correct.
are all kind of tangled together. The one you were just discussing, the fire review, and the ambulance would probably be a linked question.
Yep, and there is some, and this isn't a secret, but there is some feedback that we get from the call firefighters that the ambulance is not something that they like to staff. It's really changed their role in the department, where before, when we didn't have our own ambulance, they're always, Sarah Bishop has her hand raised. I don't know if we want to, but they've always, like, the thing to keep in mind is that they're always the first responder. So when we talk about whether we run the ambulance or we don't run the ambulance, that doesn't change the fact that the fire is the first respondent, to a medical call in town. So whether we run the ambulance or not, they're still coming. The difference is if you run the ambulance, you have transport requirements that you have to fulfill. So that means staying with the patient, and then transporting them to their hospital of choice unless it meets certain emergency criteria, in which case you have to bring them to the closest hospital. But what that has done, the transport requirements, what that has done is it changed a 30 to 45 minute call in the middle of the night or during the day. We have some IT professionals that work from home, and they're like, I used to be able to come to calls during the day because I could step away from my laptop or whatever for 45 minutes. But now I can't gamble that I'm going to go and the patient's going to want to go to, Boston, and I'm going to be gone for 4 hours. So they just tone out the call and don't respond. So again, so the change would be the ambulance would go to a Beauport, who is staged on both sides of town because they work Manchester, Essex, and Hamilton. Hamilton doesn't have an ambulance either, and Beauport does their response. So, there are options. So, but I mean, first, I think we're going to look at see how much of the money does it make? Does it make us any? And then, do we want to run it during the day? Because the full timers are like, well, it kind of gives us something to do during the day, so they don't mind going, and it might be a way to offset some full time cost to run an ambulance during the day. But then on nights and weekends, when it's preliminary call response, maybe we defer it to like a Beauport or another private ambulance company.
Hey, Sarah, do you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, I wanted to check on this one because I thought that this was, or kind of at least making a decision on both 2 and 3 was related to an audit, perhaps, that's being done right now as well. I don't see that mentioned here. I didn't hear you say anything about that, Steve, but isn't there an audit being done, and that would also give us a better sense for how financially, I don't want to say lucrative, I don't know if it's that much, but for the ambulance, I thought there was some items there that were being reviewed.
Yeah, I mean, we did conduct an operational review, but there are personnel-related matters in there that prevent us from disclosing them or the report at this time.
But I don't think it's an audit per se.
Yeah, it's not an audit. It's a kind of a best practice suggestion. they didn't get into the ambulance finances, although their findings matched and mirrored what I just said about the call firefighters. And they recommended, they didn't look into regionalizing, but the general recommendation was that that we should continue to work to try to preserve a call full-time hybrid department, and that, it works for a town of Wenham, and the group of guys that we have are, have a lot of heart, and that it's something that we should hold on to and not explore at this time, go into a full-time department, that we can continue to work with the call, just with some structures, maybe with some structural changes, delegation of duties, kind of maybe expanding some of the roles and letting some of the call people take on some additional responsibilities, which has been traditionally kept with only 1 or 2 full-timers to help spread the burden around, but that we can work with the call / full-time hybrid solution.
Okay, and so will we have, as far as timing goes, when you say these different pieces here, 2 and 3, most of this analysis has not started yet, but some of it has, it sounds like, because of this other review?
Yeah, so as far as operational finance staffing, we really haven't done any as it relates to, right, we know how much it costs us to run our department now. So, we have that data, but as far as what it would look like in a regionalized effort or a shared service, we have not done any formal analysis at all. The ambulance analysis, you are correct, we have gotten quite a bit of data as it relates to the ambulance, although we have not spent much time really diving into it and figuring out, kind of assigning some capital costs and trying to figure out the difference in, what a response time would look like, whether it's 45 minutes or whether it's 3 hours, and minimum show up times and things like that. So we haven't really worked through that, but you are right, we do have a lot more information than we did probably a month ago as far as books and billing history.
Steve, does this seem like something that you'd want to do internally rather than ask for help from FinCom?
I think this is something we could handle internally. Okay. I think just by nature of timing, right? So we had a like I said, the deputy retired. So right, so we haven't backfilled that position. So we're kind of at a standstill. Like, what do we do next? So I think we need to figure out what the future of the department looks like, and the select board is on top of that through a series of meetings that they'll be having, and then cost it out, but then start to build that, whether it's with Hamilton or what's the timeline, or if it's to just replace our existing structure or make some small tweaks within our call and full-time forces. But that's, we don't know what that's going to look like. But there is a time element, right? Because we're short a deputy. The chief would like to hire somebody, but I've kind of froze the hiring until we can figure out what we want to do, because I don't want to hire anybody only to either let them go under the probationary period, or realize that maybe we shouldn't have backfilled the position as it was, and there's something else we could have done. So this is our chance to reimagine it.
Just want to say, Madam Chair, I support, the analysis of number 2 and 3. As a select board and as a former member of the FinCom, we're always looking for ways of trying to be more efficient with our citizens' tax dollars, and there aren't a lot of opportunities. We're always struggling to find ways to do major cost control. I don't know that there will be major cost control. I've seen the analysis that's 20 years old that wasn't very compelling at the time to make a change. I think it'd be, fairly complicated to, just like we have with the regionalized school district, of, how do we ensure that there's a structure in our town, right, fire related and all the other things that go with it. So it'd be complicated, but just like with the historic district analysis that we just went through, it'd been 2 decades since that had been reviewed, you know, it's probably time to take a look at this, and with the change in staff, just like you were saying, Steve, I don't know what the answer is, but, you know, this does seem like to be a time to try to make a decision and be a little more strategic in our thinking, so I'd support this analysis.
So I'm going out to dinner next week, my wife and I, with an old select board person. And the last time we did this, was probably like 5 or 6 years ago. And he's gonna say, how come you haven't consolidated the Hamilton and Wenham fire departments? That's exactly what I'm gonna get.
Maybe say, hey, well, let's go out to dinner in 6 months, and you'll be able to say why you did or did not.
Ben?
I just wanted to echo what Finn said, that I think we should be open to this and see what the analysis is, because, like you said, Finn, there are a few opportunities for substantial cost savings with things that could be regionalized. So I'm all in favor of having the analysis done, and hopefully with FinCom involvement and support, because we've leaning on you and Ernie quite a bit on how to go about that. But I agree that it's a good idea to look at it, especially at this particular crossroads that we seem to be at. I also just wanted to give my apologies in advance that I have a child pickup that I need to attend to in about 10 minutes. So
Oh, we're going to lose you.
stepping out.
Oh, dear. Okay. So I do think, I agree with what's been said already, that this, I think, needs to rise to the top, but in the interest of time, Steve, maybe just a brief statement of
Oh, yeah, I'll take a
the rest of the list.
I don't know if I can be brief. No, I'm just kidding. So, well, I mean, with that said, so like we're looking at the the budget book. I think Ernie is doing a really good job, and he thinks he's closing in on that. Probably, by the fall, we'll actually have the ClearGov budget book produced or published on our website. So that's a huge milestone. That's like 2 or 3 years in the making. With that is we're rolling out the capital improvement module. So I know that in this, I bring that up because that's going to tie in with the budget book, and the capital improvement module will tie in with the forecasting. So, and I believe that the forecasting, free cash, and capital are all going to work closely together, because I believe the FinCom is going to want to see, both somewhat of a long range and a short range model, so it can work to come up with recommendations for our financial policies. So we have the draft policies, and around those policies focus capital spending, free cash reserves, free cash net of appropriation. So all these things that we talk about in budget season every year, how much are we going to spend on capital? We get comments like, we just spend the money because we have it. We don't have any benchmark. We don't have any standard, capital spend that we're trying to target. We have too much free cash. We don't have enough free cash, right? So but this will help us figure out, the forecasting will help us figure out what is the right free cash for Wenham. Right now we have industry best practices as our draft policies. I think they're a reasonable range, but within that range, maybe the range is a little bit on the high side for a small town like Wenham. Or maybe it's a little on the low side for a small town like Wenham, right? Given our constraints and the fact that our entire capital spend is outside of the operating budget and reliant on free cash, right? So all those things are going to tie together. So I think that that's a priority to do the forecasting, because I think by default, the other 2 key things in my priority list is get to figure out what we're going to do with free cash this year, because we're going to have about $700,000 of tax deferral, or tax deferral that we collected on, that on top of our regular free cash generation. So we're probably going to have, in excess of $2 million in free cash. So we're going to have to figure out, what do we want to do with that? And I'm not going to go into what we can do with that, but that's, let's figure that out sooner rather than later. And so we're not having this discussion when the warrant has to go to print in 2 days. You know what I mean? So that knocks a bunch of things off the list. The other thing that really isn't, doesn't really affect the boards and the staffing of the board so much, but is the audit. The audit findings, the audit picked up on the Affordable Housing Trust this year. They had a bunch of findings on that. I think that also highlights our need for better internal controls, particularly around revenue generating, property managing, so like the Iron Rail, the Affordable Housing Trust, all this formalizing, like when are people handing in checks, who's handling the checks, where do they go, make sure we get the checks every month. You know what I mean? These things we've kind of just operated on, small town, they send it in, we've worked with them for 30 years and they drop it off. I think it's time to kind of grow up and put some of these policies and procedures in place, and then, Ernie has the job of enforcing them. So, but you know what I mean? So I think that is also a priority. When I look at this list, I see Belinda is retiring. I see Jen, who we're going to talk about later, who will be stepping up into Belinda's shoes, which has caused another transition. We have Ernie, who himself is still new to the department, so I'd see there's a lot of change going on there. So, we're taking that into account, and I look at the other items on the list, things like the fee project. I mean, in a general sense, we're relatively competitive with our fees, like to go and expend the effort to do a formal fee analysis. I would say put that on the back burner for a year and maybe look at that next summer. The community comparison analysis, I know some stuff have been done to that extent. I haven't been involved in it, so I don't know where that stands. The costing of the Hamilton-Wenham Regional School District Master Plan, like that stuff, I think, unless, and this is something that Bob and I talked about, unless there's a subcommittee of folks that are willing to take that over without staff support, those are the types of things that I'm looking to, push out to maybe to next summer and not try to align it with a town meeting date of completion.
Steve, can you just turn this into like a quadrant analysis? This is stuff, one bucket is priority, next not a priority.
Yep.
Who's going to do it?
Yep.
FinCom or you and the finance department.
Yeah, no, I can do all that. And part of this is, unfortunately, most of it is a priority. But I just wanted to get this list out there just so folks understand, to communicate what's going on, right? FinCom wants to be kept in the loop. So communicate that to everybody, to communicate that capacity is limited. And
All right, I'm going to stop you for a second because we're losing Ben.
right.
Did you want to comment on anything before you leave, Ben?
I do not. Thank you for the opportunity, and I apologize that I have to unexpectedly depart early.
Thank you.
See you, Ben.
Good luck.
Time and leaving at 7:48.
But yeah, no, I can do that. And then, really going through that list, but I also wanted to make sure that I'm not missing anything, right? So I think, just from my time with FinCom was, conceptually how, I'm not sure what the fix is to this, but, how the process works. So like the solar, like sometimes things come to our attention that are, unplanned for. And, I've got a sense that they want a little bit more systematic approach, but in some cases, we kind of have to deal with them how they come. But, I wanted to also bring it up to let folks, if there's ideas on, procedures, policies we can put in place, would like to hear them.
It's a
So-
great list.
So Steve,
And then, Bob, some of your comments were pretty interesting as well.
I'm sorry, Peter?
Some of your comments were
Okay. Well, I think one thing is this general one of getting departments to let everyone know that something is coming up that has a financial impact or it's going to have to be analyzed. I've noticed on a couple of presentations that people would have benefited had they come to the finance side, whether it's Ernie or it's us, earlier in their deliberations. And I don't know how you motivate people to do that, but, it's something that we could do. I went through the list in terms of the things I think are important. And I think that where we can help, as opposed to things I think that you listed, like the book and the audit, those internal controls, those probably should be taken care of internally. They're not something that, unless you'd like us to help you with something in particular. The ones that struck me, and Sarah and David may have different views, but I thought the fire and ambulance was one that we could approach. The financial policies, I agree with you that that's something that should come up as we get more into the long-range planning and forecasting. It's kind of, I think, a low priority right now, but I mean, that's where it fits. I think our involvement in Iron Rail would be important, the fee project, but I also agree that that's a low priority kind of thing at this point, particularly since in the last year we've refined our process for how we look at revenue. And we break out particularly the library reimbursement, because when library reimbursement goes up, all it means is our expenses go up. And it doesn't really help us. I think the forecasting, I think the community comparison is something we can help with, because we've been doing that with Jeff for the last 2 years. We've done the DPW, we've done the library, we've done part of education. And so, and I think on the master plan, that's something that we could help with, in terms of putting some resources, because, it is such a large part of our overall budget. So I guess I'd ask Sarah if she's got any comments from having looked at the list.
Yeah, I would just say I'm glad to see that the schools was added at the end. I think, there's a question of how far we could get in the coming year. But it does seem like this is something that we really need to do, that keeps coming up, and we know there's a lot of different pieces that need to be developed and analysis completed so that we can invest in the schools and try to plan that out in the coming years. So that's something I definitely see as a priority to get started, but understanding it will take some time. Otherwise, I don't have any, I think that I agreed with the proposal or request to have Steve write out a few more columns there. That'll be helpful. I was trying to take some notes, but I couldn't really tell fully. And I think part of it is that we haven't done the analysis. So we don't know where the best place is to even put our time, like where there could be potential savings to the town. But it does seem like, as others were saying, I agree that the ambulance and fire sounds like an area where we could improve on. So, and it is more of a priority, it seems, anyway, that a decision needs to be made. So, yeah, that's all for me.
David, anything you want to add?
No, nothing really outside of kind of what's already been said. I would say on the health insurance item, that has been such a large driver, and these are 2 or 3 year conversations, I think, it sounds like, at least, where just the power of forming the committee, I think, will help our negotiating power with Maya in terms of year-over-year increases. So just the act of starting to look, I think, could help this town, whether or not we actually get to a finding anytime soon. Because I think what we've seen the last 2 budget cycles I've been a part of, at least, is you get these insurance numbers very late in the game, and they basically just said, you're stuck with it. And that's a huge problem. It really drives, we came very close to an override 2 years ago, if I remember right, based on the health insurance numbers moving a lot. So, caused a lot of problems. But like bigger picture, I think also it's just really worth thinking about what are the services that we're providing as a town that we should be providing as a town of 5,000 people. Ambulance, some of the housing trust things. I don't know all the details, but just thinking philosophically, we do have limited resources, so it's important to kind of think about that. And that may be outsourcing.
All right, we'll go to the select board. Finn?
Sure. So, I appreciate everybody's input on this. One of the things that I really appreciate, Steve, is that you put together this list so that we could have this discussion and organize this meeting. I think it's pretty important. I hope with some of the feedback you've gotten here, you can help us by adding those columns, those different factors. And there are certain things that maybe the FinCom, would be willing to volunteer themselves with to help your team, and some of these that they can't help with, right? And knowing that where you can go for help on these. I'm not gonna, I've already mentioned the fire, since that's particularly timely right now, so I'm not gonna go into the rest of these, but helping, getting your insight on where you would prioritize these, when they might be able to start, even if you just call it a straw man, and just so that we have a discussion, that'd be very helpful for us to move this forward. So, that's it. Thanks very much.
Gary?
I think that a lot of it centers around the division of responsibilities, and I think perhaps we need to be a little more innovative in that historically the process was build a budget, select board says yes, hand it over to FinCom, and they take it to town meeting. It was a very simplistic approach, whereas today's questions and issues are very complex and is not a one-year process for a lot of these things. So that perhaps that within select board or FinCom or in the staff, that perhaps we need whatever you call them, a study group, whatever, to focus on each of these issues. Because, just take the fire department, for example, that is really, there's a financial aspect, but there's also historical aspect, there's personalities, there's organizational structures, as well before we even talk about regionalization. So I think something like that, we need to bring together several partners, perhaps outside of the regular budget process, and say, here, take this time and really study this one issue. Likewise, I think there's something like, the fee project, yeah, it takes staff time, but perhaps, that's one that the select board could solicit just a temporary committee of 2 or 3 people and just go, hey, your task is to look at our fee structure, compare it to other towns, do we need to update it or not? And that should be able to be done in a few meetings. But yeah, I think what we need for next step here is for Steve to lay out his priorities for the select board, and then see what areas that the FinCom can assist on, such as the free cash, forecasting projects and so forth. But I don't think we can go too much farther until we sort of decide our own priorities.
Peter?
Fine.
Fine.
I've already spoken.
Okay. So I thank you for putting the list together. I think this is helpful to start getting us on the same page and to proceed with the prioritization exercise. I think my concern, and I think there are things that, in terms of timeliness, are just going to have to be done this year. The hiring transitions is going to need to happen because that's already in motion. The iron rail, we've already set that as a goal, so I think that's going to be pressing, and as everyone seems to have agreed, the fire and the ambulance intertwined, but looking at that expeditiously is also going to be very important. But I guess just what I want to make sure that everyone is keeping in front of mind is that we have Steve and we have Ernie. We do have a finance team, but most of the finance team is consumed with making sure that the business, the day-to-day business gets done. All of the accounting, fees, permits, revenue, so forth and so on, reporting, warrants, all of that. In addition, we're coming into budget season where all the departments and the finance staff are going to be starting to prepare the budget. We start discussions, we have to put a warrant together, and that is typically a very busy time of year. So I just want us all to be cognizant of those competing demands. And as we think through the list, I think as Gary said, are there things that can, in essence, be outsourced, but with the careful consideration of what can truly be outsourced without necessarily a lot of staff involvement. And I think we need to be clear about that, be clear about where the FinCom could potentially do some analysis where you're willing, without, again, a lot of staff involvement, to make sure that we're utilizing our staff to the best possible use and getting the things done that are pressing, in addition to keeping the wheels on a day-to-day basis and moving us successfully towards another town meeting. So I think that's my sort of primary concern.
Can I make a suggestion to
Sure.
approach that? Having spent decades in the strategic planning business for lots of people, including government agencies, is that you kind of, in your thinking, separate the long-range planning from the budget process. You may separate who's doing it, but I would suggest that maybe we spend the summer and start right after town meeting, a period where we focus on the longer term issues and get those underway before, as you rightly indicate, you get all the pressures of trying to get the budget done. And so that would be my suggestion. Start it early. The committee has a long-range plan that we did use in terms of the recommendations about using free cash last year. Well, it's this year when we talked about it. So, there are some tools already in process. Ernie is looking at using the planning extension of the existing system that exists. So there are a couple of ways to kind of get into it. But I think the important thing is, you've got to commit to it. You got to start it, and you got to kind of separate it a little bit from your budget process so that you people can focus on the long term. Because otherwise, what happens is you never get to the long term.
Right.
And the long term happens.
That's correct. So I think you're suggesting so that we prepare now to queue it up for immediately following next year's town meeting. Is that what I'm hearing
Suggesting
correctly?
that, and maybe we can get something started this year. There's still some left to the summer before we really get into high gear.
We do, but.
You
again,
go to the beach and you can take your laptop and work on it.
Oh, is that what you do, Bob?
Surely. That's why you use a laptop instead of a regular office computer.
There you go. Mobile.
So
Joe,
along
go
those
ahead,
lines,
Finn.
there are certain things that I think Steve can say on this list that have to get done, and they have to get done, and they are, some of them have long-term kind of consequences. So I think that he can help guide us with, these are the ones that, we could get going and might see some real analysis be ready, say, by October, and be done with them. Or maybe not done with them, but at least free ourselves up for when the real budget work starts to happen. So I'm looking for Steve with his experience to be able to help us with that and be able to achieve what you described. And he'll say, yeah, these are the ones that we'll have to move to, May of next year.
Or beyond. I mean, I think these are all worthy projects, don't get me wrong, but we have to balance it against capacity. Where do we start? Where do we move to? And what hopefully does not go on indefinitely, but is not the first tier of priority. All right, further comments?
Good discussion.
Good discussion?
I don't have anything else to add. Yeah, it was very, very helpful. I appreciate everybody's feedback. I don't have anything else to add unless anybody else does.
Are you saying you're speechless?
I'm saying I was asked to expedite my, and I'm not going to go into anything else.
Yeah, are you ready for us to adjourn then?
I think if there's no more further comments.
Anything else, Sarah?
Sarah?
Sarah, did you have any comments?
Sorry, I couldn't get to the unmuting button. No, nothing else from me. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll make the motion to adjourn at 8:03.
Okay. Is there a second to the motion? Sarah?
Yes, second.
Okay. All in
I
favor?
forget there's only 3 of us.
Well, that's true.
For the moment.
For the moment. All in favor of adjourn? Sarah?
Just aye.
David, aye.
Bob, aye. We stand adjourned at 8:04.
Great. Thank you very much to the FinCom for joining us this evening, and we will, I'm sure, have more of these.
Welcome.
Quality time.
Yep. All the time.
Okay, that takes care of this. And we did just to add, the FinCom appointing committee is meeting tomorrow evening. I'm guessing, am I guessing correctly that we have a candidate in the room? You are. Okay, thank you for joining us this evening. Did you want to say hello real quick?
Oh, yeah, sure. It's, I'm Alex Forellis, 37 William Fairfield Drive. Dave and I had a neighbor's barbecue 2 weeks ago, and we just got to talking about how interesting this work is, and I'm thinking about participating in it, so
Love
I'll be
it.
here tomorrow night.
Recruiting at a barbecue, well
Yeah,
done,
that's right.
David. Excellent scouting. Thank you for coming this evening.
Last barbecue you'll go to, right?
So the FinCom appointing committee will be meeting tomorrow to consider Mr. Varela's application, so thank you for applying. And we'll see you tomorrow. All right. So we are up to item G, which is to review the draft policy that Steve has put together to allow signage crediting the Community Preservation Act funding to be placed at project sites, which we discussed at our last meeting. And Steve has put together, we have show and tell as well. Excellent.
So for the cameras. All right, so this, I believe, captures our discussion last time, which was to, at least my take was to allow for CPC signage or advertising that that your CPC funds were used for this project, both through the granting process and also the town managed projects, with restrictions to any war memorial, such as the two across the street in the cemetery. Obviously, we can add more, but that's what I got from the conversation. And the fact that it was not permanent, and the board wanted a time restriction around it, so I went with, the day the project commenced, so that the contractor shows up to do the work, the CPC can plug this sign into the ground, and it will need to be removed within, I think I went with 7 days of the project's conclusion. Was it 14?
Yeah.
Okay, 14 days from the projects. I did speak with the chair of the CPC, and this wasn't drafted at the time, but I shared with her my thoughts that I was going to include in it, and she was supportive, and we seemed like we aligned. And she actually brought this sign so that I could show it to the board. And I figured that the board would probably want to approve this design as being the official CPC sign, so that in that way it'll be uniform in nature. What else? Oh, one other thing I included in there that was brought to my attention during the meeting with the chair was they're looking for certain projects where they feel is it appropriate to request in the application. So the appropriation at town meeting would be inclusive of, and I said that it probably would make sense that we make sure we spell it out very clearly to the voting population at the meeting, that it is included in a permanent sign. So like the Enon 1 Village, there's a permanent plaque that was put there with CPC funds. And it was a separate grant to buy the plaque and put it up there, from my understanding, the way. And they've gotten feedback and that it really can't be funded with CPC. The signage can't be funded with CPC funds after the fact. But if it's included in the original request and the appropriation goes to town meeting, then you can include it. So I want the select board to be aware that, that those recommendations may be coming out of the CPC in the future, and then this grant agreement kind of frames that up, and that it has to come that, permanent signs have to be, basically what it's trying to do is make it so that it goes before town meeting, so that all the folks that are voting to grant this money know that part of this money is going towards a permanent plaque. And it's not just the project. So nobody feels like their money is being spent on plaques that, aren't super expensive, but they can be, weatherproof and that type of stuff does get costly.
The way I think about that, Steve, for the people whining about, spending too much money on plaques, I think for the people that are actually on the CPC, hey, we actually did that. And I think the citizens should understand that, that's where your money's going.
Yeah, I don't
So I think it's important.
Hopefully this does capture the discussion.
Yes, I didn't have any real issues with it. I guess my only question would be, you did talk to the chair, but I think it would be good to send this to the CPC just to see if they have any input before we finalize.
Can do that. That's the will of the
Anyone
board
have-
for sure.
What's that?
Just if that's the will of the board for sure. Can do that.
On this, thank you, Madam Chair. This reflects our discussion. I think it makes sense. I think it covers all the concerns that we'd had, and the limited feedback that you got from them about this being acceptable is a good sign. No pun intended. So I'm looking forward to hearing what they actually think about this. But as it stands, I'd be willing to vote for this. So looking for their feedback before we enact it. Thank you.
Thank you, Finn. Gary?
Good, I think we covered everything from the previous time in this draft.
Okay. All right, so if there's no objections, Steve, I think send this to the CPC, just let them have an opportunity to provide input. I'm guessing, I don't see any hands, there's no hands on Zoom?
Nope.
Okay, we'll take any feedback, but it sounds like for us at least, we're all prepared to go with it.
All right.
Okay. All right, so move to item H, review the initial list of town-owned land that is recommended for disposal by the working group. And Steve is going to just give us a brief explanation of the process used to determine the list and what our next steps are. Sorry, I'm teasing you again.
No, I know. And this will be relatively brief, as brief as you want it. So first, Michelle actually ran this working group, so thank you, Michelle. And the process was they initially started with a staff working group that made an initial review of the 23 parcels that we deem are appropriate or have select board authorization to dispose of without town meeting. And ultimately arrived at, you scroll down a little, please, 10 that the group recommended for disposal. Those recommendations were then brought to, we tried to bring in a couple planning board members, but it was just David Anderson was the only one that was able to align his schedule, but he was very helpful, and he agreed with the group's recommendation for disposal of these 10 parcels. There are, the caveat here is that it's not quite as straightforward as the other ones, in that there may be a cost from between $500 and $700, I believe, per parcel for disposal, because these ones are very small or very wet and landlocked, and they're, the only person interested in it would be in a butter, which is common in this, but even in some instances where there really isn't an abutter, and you'll have to go through the maps. We won't go through it to show you now that there may not even be interest from an abutter. So the disposition would either, fail to get any interest at all, in which sense would have to compensate the auctioneer, which normally works on a commission based on the selling price, similar to what was done with the 2 we disposed to the brand wines over on Longfellow. And then, so you see here, out of that 22, 5 of them were flagged for that there's possibility it could be advantageous for the town for other uses, whether it be open space, pocket park, right-of-way access. So those are going to continue through the working group as we kind of narrow down on, proposals of what to do with those. And disposal is unlikely going to be a recommendation. And then, so those are the 5. And then you see here we have 4 or 5 community. I think it's 5. Can you scroll down? Yep, 5 MBTA community. So those are the 5 parcels that we zoned the MB3A, MBTA 2 town meetings ago. So those are, I guess, held up in our MBTA, the 3A certification for the state. So we'll, as we work through that process with the OHLC and finalize what we're going to do with those parcels, that will be rolled out in time. And then lastly, just the 2 that I mentioned earlier that were already sold. And the memo is online for folks at home to look at. Select Board, I apologize for the late circulation of this, but it's there for you to take a look at. There's no vote needed tonight. This is really just an overview, since it was an objective that the Select Board asked me to do at last year's working group, and I wanted to be able to capture it as a done item in this year's workshop. So that's why it's here.
So for some of these less desirable parcels, essentially, if there's no interest, the town has to retain it. And there's no real way to ascertain that without going to auction, actually attempting to dispose of it.
Yeah, there's a couple, maybe I think 3 here. One is 2 are Audubon, and one is, was there another one? Was it Essex Greenbelt? There's another nonprofit, I think. Oh, it's Salem Beverly Water Board. So, those ones we could just approach them and be like, hey, would you want to buy it? I'm guessing the answer is probably no. But it's like, if you want to give it to us, we'd take it, right? So it might be a situation like that. The other ones do. Yep.
I wouldn't give Beverly anything.
I don't disagree.
Where is Zero Monument? Isn't that right here? Isn't this right in front of the church, the Zero Monument, or like the tea house?
Sometime. I don't know. We can. Are these on the disposition list? Which list do you?
It's the first. It's on the first page. So
you'll see a lot of them are 0. So it doesn't mean that it's at the beginning of the street.
I think you're right, though, Finn. I think that is right over.
So if we could scroll down for it to the maps and go to Zero Monument.
I was just trying to look.
Right there. So it's right there.
Ah, okay. So that's on the 60 side of Monument. Okay.
Yeah, that's an odd parcel.
Very wet. It's like a depression.
Funny what happens every year.
A good place for a tree house, maybe.
Yeah, or our Christmas party, town Christmas party.
There you go.
So for the moment, this is informational.
Yeah, so what we'll do is, if the select board, can take a moment and just review over the next couple of weeks, and if there's any, because what I plan on doing once, it'll be in September, because we have the next 2 meetings mapped out, but it will come back asking to appoint Belinda as the custodian of these parcels. So then she has the authorization to move through the process.
Okay.
Just a side question, as Belinda departing at some point, have we ensured that she has written down the process she undertakes to do this? Because she's spent a lot of time learning.
Yep. Yeah, so yes, I'll get into that on the next agenda item.
All right, that's a good segue. Any last comments on this? Okay, so let's move on to, Steve is going to update us on the treasurer-collector position, the search process, and a request for the board to authorize him to finalize terms of employment with the final candidate.
Yep. So we post, so as we just mentioned, Belinda is retiring. Her retirement date is the end of December. And we posted, we wanted to have given that Belinda gave us, I want to take advantage of the fact that Belinda gave us such a large notice of her retirement. So we wanted to coordinate some overlap. So we posted the position, and we knew we had a strong internal candidate, and we knew that if that candidate was successful in the process, that it would create another vacancy in the department. So we wanted to get out ahead of it. And we posted the position. We got how many total applications, Joe?
Around 10.
10 total applications, 3 including Jen Davis, who is the internal candidate. We felt were qualified for the job. The others did not meet the minimum qualifications. We invited those 3 in for a interview. At the last minute, though, 2 of the 3 withdrew. One took a job in Topsfield. No, West Newbury for the same role. It just happened to be that there's 3 or 4 almost neighboring communities are hiring for the very same position right now. And then the other one?
They didn't really respond. They were too interested.
So anyways, Jen still went through the interview process. We formed a panel. And the panel was unanimous in their recommendation for her to take the position. I think that's great. She's been with the town for 3 years. She's been a huge asset, a complete rock star in my opinion. And also it really sets us up in the best practical light for success in the transition, as she can start. Well, she's already started training immediately. The documentation of processes and like this are all part of the training, and it is a community it's getting late. It is a townwide initiative through the select board is to document procedures, internal procedures, which we have made got a good chunk out of that this year, but continuing on that, adding on to what Belinda has already done. Jen, through the learning process, will be documenting and writing formal notes. And so with this, I'm asking the select board to authorize me to proceed to finalize the terms of employment in line with our compensation structure for Jen Davis.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think this is wonderful. I agree. Jen is a rock star and couldn't really be better for a transition and succession.
I'd agree. Nope. Nothing else.
Nothing else? Gary?
Likewise, just a question, the Jen's position we advertise.
Yeah, the plan is, Ernie, right, we want to have a month overlap.
Well, we modeled this out, and if we were to hire somebody October 1st, but a lower level person, we could probably get this to within about $2,000 of the original budget, which, considering all the turnover, that's as good as we could get. That would give us a 3-month transition for the new position. And honestly, I'd be shocked if we actually pulled it off according to that time frame, but not meeting the time frame, it's a little bit less of a transition, but also a little bit less of a budget thing. So ideally sometime early in the 4th calendar quarter of this year.
Yeah, so it should be about as smooth as a 2-person transition in a 4-person office can be.
Motion?
Yes.
I move to authorize the town administrator to finalize terms of employment for the treasurer/collector position.
Gary seconds.
All right, we'll take a vote. Peter?
Yes.
Deirdre, yes.
And I.
Gary, yes.
All right, motion passes. Thank you, Steve. And congratulations to Jen.
Thank you.
Okay, we have one late addition to the agenda that came to my attention over the last 48 hours. So we did add it under unanticipated items. So I'm going to give Jennifer a chance to comment, but the item is discussion on a request from Jennifer Jacanovic regarding the use of her home for an independent film project. Dr. Jacanovic has requested permission related to the use of her residence as a filming location for a 7-day period between August 10th and August 18th.
Thanks, Deirdre. Good evening. My name is Jennifer Jacanovic. I know it's late, so thank you for including me. I live at 36 Topsfield Road in Wenham. My husband and I have lived here for 13 years, along with our 3 high school and college-age children and my mother. Thank you for giving me the time to speak tonight. I'm here because a small film production company applied for a permit to film inside our home during the week of August 10th through 18th, and the town administrator denied it, saying that he cannot approve any commercial operation in the residential zone. I'm asking the select board to review that decision and allow this temporary use to move forward, as that was a surprise to us. First, I want to be clear about what we're asking. It's not a business operating out of our home. It's not a reoccurring activity. It's a short, temporary, professionally managed film taking place entirely inside, specifically my living room, my kitchen, and 1 bedroom. The crew is small, the hours are limited, and the impacts are minimal, and one of us is home the entire time it's being used. They've already paid us a $5,000 deposit, and they are fully insured. Second, the Wenham zoning bylaw does not prohibit this activity. The bylaw simply doesn't list film production as a principal or accessory use. And under Massachusetts zoning law and under Article 13 of Wenham's own bylaws, the select board has the authority to approve temporary uses that are not explicitly listed as long as the impacts are mitigated, and that's exactly the situation here. Third, our proposed film shoot fully complies with Article 9 of the performance standards. There's no excessive noise, no lighting impacts, no generators, no street closures, and no disruption to neighbors. Parking is contained on our property, and we have a very long driveway, and our home is hidden behind a long fence. The activity is entirely indoors, and our abutting neighbors have both written letters of support, which I sent to Deirdre. We're more than willing to accept reasonable conditions regarding hours or parking or anything like that. Fourth, this request is consistent with how other Massachusetts towns handle filming. Hamilton, Topsfield, Essex, Rockport, and Manchester by the Sea all allow temporary film shoots through special permits or just administrative approval. Wenham doesn't currently have a formal process, which is why the administrator defaulted to a denial. However, Wenham is listed on the Massachusetts film site, and in the last 10 years, there's a public record of 4 films being shot on location in Wenham, which is why the film company sought to shoot here. Finally, this is an opportunity for Wenham, not a burden. The production brings economic benefit, it brings positive visibility, and it demonstrates that Wenham is willing to work collaboratively with residents on reasonable temporary requests. We're not asking for anything that would change the character of our neighborhood or set a problematic precedent. We're asking for a one-time, very low-impact temporary use that fits comfortably within the discretion that the board has. I believe, based on what I've shared and the fact that this film is less than 3 weeks away on August 10th, and thus will now force us to lose $5,000 that we have received, along with anticipated income in a year when our local taxes have increased significantly and we have 2 children in college, and it may cause the entire production to cancel. I'm asking you to reconsider. We are committed to working with the town, with our neighbors, and with the production company to ensure this is handled professionally, safely, and with minimal impact. And my neighbors who abut my property echoed the same points in this presentation. I have been told that you have no authority, but I believe that the decision was made in error, and in light of the timing, this puts our family in an incredible financial bind as well as this film, and there was no indication that this would be an issue prior. Thank you for allowing me to present, and I would welcome your feedback as to next steps, as this puts our family in a real bind right now.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate the presentation. And I think, I feel for you. Don't get me wrong. I feel for your situation. Our understanding, as we have consulted with building inspector and town council is that the select board does not actually have the authority to grant a permit or change the use essentially that is in the bylaw. So I'm not going to be the best one to explain the bylaw, but we have a table of uses. And if it is not explicitly allowed in the table of uses, it is not something that we are at liberty to approve. And just let me continue, and then you can have a chance to also speak. Our building inspector is the agent for the town who is empowered to make these assessments and determinations. We do not have the authority to overrule his decisions. My understanding that in those cases, the appeal would have to go to the zoning board of appeals, although I don't believe they have the statutory ability for use. Again, it's the use question.
Yeah, they can't. And again, it's community specific, but in Wenham, the ZBA, or nobody has the authority to grant a use variance, only dimensional relief in the zoning requirements. So like acreage, setbacks, things like that. So the ZBA could overturn Rich's decision. So the appeal would go through the ZBA, and the argument would need to be that the movie production is indeed an allowed use under the Wenham current zoning. And so if you convince the ZBA of that, they could overturn Rich's decision.
And when is that meeting? Because it puts... I would think that a lot of citizens would have concern with this. This is something in our private home. We discussed it with our neighbors, like just being good neighbors. To be told there's no commercial activity, what does that exactly mean when people have consulting things in their homes? I mean, people do a lot in their homes. This was an effort by our family to try and alleviate a burden this particular year. We didn't know that it was an issue, especially because films get shot all the time. That's why someone encouraged me to do this. Even on a Hamilton Wenham community group a few years ago, there was like, hey, this old house, or it was one of this is coming to town. Like, it was not done in error, and the timing of the denial, which did take over a week to get back to the film company, and they had received approvals from all these other towns nearby, has really put us in a bind. And the film company is, they're small, but they are flying in from LA with and our home it's just conversations taking place. It's not a big action film. It's just conversations literally being filmed in my living room. So I am really struggling to understand how this even needs to go to the zoning board when my neighbors are very clear, and I have it written, that they're fine with it. And we have a long driveway, it's tucked back. So you're using the language of that we've committed, that this is not allowed by a bylaw, but I'm really struggling based on what I shared earlier in terms of what the mitigating circumstances are and in the intent of the law, to understand why we would be breaking a bylaw by having a video shoot in our home. In terms of commercial activities, this is a one-time situation, and people often have things in their homes. So I'm just really struggling to understand, and I guess because of the financial burden this has suddenly placed, because we use the money to pay for tuition. So this month in particular, will we be fine? I'm sure, but it's also the principle of the matter, and it also puts this company into an incredible bind, and you're encouraging citizens to find creative ways to stay here and to foster business in our community. And here's an incredible opportunity to do that, and to have these individuals purchasing things and going to restaurants in our community. And for this technicality, it just seems rather arbitrary to suddenly clamp down on our particular family. It's just, I'm struggling to understand.
Say something?
Yes.
Who here's been into Hamilton House of Pizza?
What,
What was
on
that?
Railroad?
On Railroad, yeah, Railroad Lab. You been in there?
Yeah.
I can't remember if it's still up there, but there used to be a picture of Adam Sandler. Because he shot a movie, I think part of a movie in Hamilton.
I don't know what Hamilton's bylaws are, but the movies that were filmed here were done at Penguin Hall, which is an educational institution, which is exempt from these laws that we're talking about.
I personally, listening to this, this doesn't make any sense to me. I agree with her, Jennifer.
I mean, that's fair. I mean, the reason for the denial, and Rich and I talked about this at length, is that it is in his determination that it is not an allowable use. It's pretty clear that if it's not listed in this chart of uses, then it's not allowable, and it's not listed. He made the determination, and I've supported him. And I agree. Like I've said yesterday, I don't disagree at all. I agree that it is probably benign and not impactful, and your neighbors are on board.
May I ask a question? Because Rich didn't actually know the address of the home. He didn't inquire.
But the whole thing is, it doesn't. That's what I was getting to. Is it doesn't really matter whether this is a movie or something else. It's applying the rules uniformly, regardless. And if this is something that the town is supportive of, then it should bring it to town meeting and have it changed for the future. And I can say that in the last 5 years, we have not received one. I know you've said it a number of times that things go on all the time, but we have not received one request for a permit. And we were approached in a formal capacity to provide a permit for this use, and we had to deny it because it's not an allowable use.
I want to work with the town on this because I think it actually opens the door to a lot of conversation, especially post-COVID with people and their work environments. But I am asking for the town to have some empathy here in terms of the financial loss for our family, and we really thought we were doing everything right in terms of to allow this for a temporary use. Just for this one, with the understanding that the bylaw has to change, but with the confusion regarding it, and if you read the bylaws, and as I stated, it really does not seem clear because the intent of the law is to not, change the neighborhood in terms of, or to bother your neighbors. And in no way, in hosting the film in my living room, is that happening. And so I guess I'm asking if this needs to be brought up at the town meeting. Is there some temporary use that the select board, recognizing the complexity of it and the confusion around it, would grant in light of the time frame of it being less than 3 weeks, not having time for the zoning? If the film company, they are considering even canceling their travel to come here, they're filming in nearby towns for other locations, but they don't have a home, which is where the bulk of the dialogue takes place. And so we are living in the home at the same time. So I guess I'm asking for your mercy on this in terms of just in light of the particular financial hit that our family and the surprise of this and not understanding. I hear what you're saying. It's just very challenging for us to swallow that what we're about to lose this month, in particular this year, as in terms of how much the taxes have increased since we moved here 13 years ago. So I don't know how this, the laws, I apologize, but I would appreciate your mercy on this particular one.
Gary, go.
Is the request for the permit a prerequisite on behalf of the film company?
The film company did say they have to have it. They're trying to do it right too. I've had plenty of people say it could just happen, but they want to do it right. They don't want their.
What circumstance in the past has the select board approved other events, if any?
I mean, it would have to be.
We've approved private nonprofit activity, but I'm not sure we've ever had a case where commercial activity.
I think, yes, the issue is that it's a commercial activity on a residential property, which is explicitly not allowed by the bylaw in the residential district, which we did not draft. That was written by people who predate us by a long
Before there was
time.
film, probably.
Probably, potentially, yes.
Sure.
I mean, I think, it is not our wish to cause you hardship. That is certainly not the intent or the desire by any stretch of the imagination.
Is the ZBA available and within a timeline that would match the film company's?
I don't know. I don't know. I could certainly find out. I don't know their availability right now.
Yeah, the
The
question.
film company has told us that if this, I've asked them if they could just wait until Wednesday, tomorrow, if they could just wait. But they have a lot of people, that the logistics, and it most likely is they'll have to. I've never done this, so I'm not sure on all the logistics. We signed a contract with them. And so most likely we will have to give back the money. And so the timing, just because they would either have to find another site, they've been trying to see if they could find another home on this short notice. Our family was really willing to work with them on it because it came at a really good time for us with this particular month.
Yeah, and I think in general, I mean, I didn't know this was a thing really, that you could have a film made in your house, but
Salem Lot did most of Ipswich and Hamilton and people. I mean, I only know because my son had done some acting and someone said, hey, this is a great thing. You should, just so.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool, honestly.
You run into the 48-hour notice even to convene the ZBA.
Yeah, it has to be a posted meeting. So we would have to find out. But the issue that we have as the select board is that it's not within our authority, and that's been reiterated by town council for us to overturn the finding by the enforcement agent and a use to basically grant a variance on the bylaws. That's not within our span of authority. So that's the problem that we have.
I understand. I think when I look at the email, and one, it says no commercial activity in any residence, and two, when I met with the permit, there was no inquiry as to, could you tell me more about this property or where it is or anything like that. And so it was just and you said you had never had this issue come to you before. And so a part of me is like, as the resident who was doing this, that would have been helpful to have had the chance. And now the time is up and my family is out the $5,000 that we already just paid our daughter's tuition, 2 daughters' tuitions with. So, and again, I guess maybe even because I've sat here listening to the conversation and even some of the conversation about all of the budget issues and the regionalization, and sitting in those meetings where we did strategic planning, people are looking for economic opportunity in this town. Here is an opportunity where these 20 wonderful people are coming to live in they're filming in my house, and they have to eat somewhere and they have to do all this, and this could be great. And I understand you have to get something approved in a town meeting, but in the meantime, and I don't know what happens if someone does this and then they break a bylaw. Do they pay a fine? I don't even know, because we're very lawful abiding citizens, so I don't, but recognizing the 48 hours, I don't know. I just think I think it was misinterpreted based on what I was saying. And the intent of the law is to not have any mitigating circumstances and to honor your neighbor. And we really sought to honor our neighbors, and they have written their approval of this. So there's the intent of the law, and then there is the bylaw. And so for my family, I'm just asking, recognizing the time and recognizing that apparently I can't even meet with the zoning appeals, and it did take over a week to get back to them.
So I think the inspector did not ask for details because of the fact that it's a commercial use and residential property, which is on the table of use, it's divided, right? It's residential and it's commercial. And so the specifics are not germane in his view, is my take on it.
But the bylaw doesn't list film production as a principal or accessory use. And it also fully complies with Article 9. If you're a general citizen and you read that, I don't see how you can think that you've broken the law.
So what I recall is that the table of use, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not looking at it, that activities that are not explicitly allowed are excluded. So that's my understanding of how the Wenham bylaw is written. And we did ask town council today for their interpretation of this as well. It was consistent. Are you going to try to pull it up?
I don't know, is it?
So I just want to mention something else too. I mean, I agree that website that you're referring to, the Massachusetts film website or something, is misleading. We, I think as a town, were not aware that we were listed. I mean, I do think all towns are listed with their contact people. They do have 2 movies listed that were not filmed in Wenham, because I did research all of them today. So just because they listed it there, I don't think it's necessarily true, because I did a search on all 4 movies. 2 of the movies, and these things are out there on the internet.
Yeah.
There are sites that actually list very specifically where these movies were filmed. 2 of them, there was nothing on the internet that I could find that had anything to do with Wenham. One was like a German TV series that was filmed in Rockport. So I think there are errors in that website, which we will reach out to them to correct. The 2 movies that were in fact filmed in Wenham, as Steve mentioned, were filmed at the Academy of Penguin Hall, which is not a private residence. So I think the idea that there's some case history, there is not, in fact, a history of movies being filmed at a private residence that we're aware of. And I also saw on that film website that they do state in the resource section that the process should be started very early with towns in particular, because it may have to go to town meeting for approval. And I think that's a recognition that not all bylaws allow for this kind of commercial use. So I just want to point that out. There are issues with that website, and we will attempt to reach out and have the Wenham information corrected. But it does state that to be sure to start the process early in terms of getting a permit.
I know that
That's more for the film production company, but I just want to state that that is there.
Right. I know that they were working through their list and that they received permits from everyone. And yes, maybe there were, I don't know. I know films, having watched my son go through a couple of things, a lot of decisions are made very last minute. But this particular one, they had gotten the permits from the other neighboring towns. They saw it listed, not knowing necessarily. I didn't realize the other 2 were. I know there's confusion because even other people I talked to who are like in the development world, commercial development, real estate development, were like really surprised that this was an issue. And they're like, they said that Adam Sandler just did a film here. And then I said, well, I think it was in Hamilton. But they're like, that's so confusing because people will see this happening and think that it can be done here. So as the regular citizen thinking, oh, this is a great way to use my home and have someone help, and now I realize you're going to go back to the bylaw and the very specific bylaw, but you've cost my family, that's costing my family a lot of money this month. And that just seems really an unfair use when you're trying to encourage people and yet the taxes keep increasing and we are all trying to do our best. And I run an international nonprofit. It's really painful to see this kind of decision made. So when there are worse, yeah.
I feel for your situation, and again, we are not trying to penalize you, but we all sitting here have taken an oath to uphold the bylaws and the laws of the state and the town.
I understand. I'm asking for a temporary use.
But that's not within our authority. That's the issue. I personally have no problem with what you're proposing. I think it's great. I think it's cool. I mean, does anyone else see any?
I would say that, what authority we might have, Madam Chair, to ask the planning board to propose something to be changed on the bylaws.
Oh, yes.
So that, whatever has worked for our neighboring towns, we can, put this in the town meeting and avoid this pain in the future. I would be supportive of that.
Agreed.
I don't want to,
Doesn't help her, but, well, we should close that loop.
As my daughter said, why are you even going? They probably won't accept it. And I said, well, maybe it'll change it for someone in the future. Just happened to cost my family actually $11,000. So it's really, I work with kids in the slums of Nairobi. This is really just feels so trite. But I understand the law is the law. I just feel like it's a misuse of the law, and I feel like more research should have been done to actually inquire to the family, since our home sits so far back and it's not bothering anyone. So
We don't believe that you're bothering anyone or would be
yes, but
bothering anyone.
it's costing us $11,000 in total. We have to now give back the $5,000, and it's just a painful thing. So,
Is there?
Can we try to mobilize the ZBA with Kate? I don't know how quickly, but
I mean,
they consider just an emergency motion if I emailed them my letter this evening along with the information recognizing the temporary use, because I actually think a change to the bylaws will help many families, not because of the film, but because of actually how the bylaw is written. This is post-COVID. We're in a new era. People work from home. So if I can help families in that regard, I am very happy to have stood here this evening. If they would allow me to email my letter to them this evening to explain the circumstances, if there's any way that they would do that, I would be very grateful.
So yes, I believe you can. The question is, so the posting requirement, they would have to do this in a public session because that's how we're all required to work. They cannot just grant it, right? So the posting requirement is 48 hours. So we would have to try to mobilize them to put together an agenda and to set a meeting as quickly as possible, but not less than 48 hours, okay? Because it has to be publicly posted for that long. Again, we are required to follow the law.
I understand.
So we can try to mobilize that and request that take place.
Are they allowed to do that by Zoom, or it has to be in person?
They can do it by Zoom. That's at the discretion of the committee.
Yeah, I'll certainly work with Kate in the morning to see what their availability is.
So should I email you what I wrote tonight?
You can.
And I'll ask the production if they'll wait if there's any way they would wait 2 more days.
They need, I would say a few more days.
Yeah, I mean, depends on if they can get a quorum. I mean,
To me, the best they could do is 48 hours from the day they decide. So say it takes them to 11 o'clock noon time tomorrow to figure out what their availability is. They'd have to meet in the afternoon on Friday would be the best they could do.
So we have to get to them. They have to agree to a time 48 hours from the point that they agree, so that from the point that we can post the agenda.
If you're willing to attempt that, that would be very helpful, or maybe I'm hopeful, but
yeah, I'll do it.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the extended time. I know it's late.
That's not a problem. Again, Jennifer, this is by no means personal. Unfortunately, this is our role. And
we didn't realize, so our apologies for that. It seemed very innocent so.
Yes, we don't fault you, and I appreciate the film company trying to do things the right way. I think we do need to try to reach out to that website, because I do agree it's misleading and there are errors, so that people aren't misled. And I agree with Finn that trying to actually do this officially in the bylaw, as you said, the world has changed. Our bylaws have not changed as fast. And it sounds like, in this particular area, we need to do some updating so that we don't have this kind of situation going forward for you or for anyone else.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming this evening. All right, Steve, so we'll leave that follow-up to you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the last thing this evening is just to go over some dates.
Did we do the Dexter Lane one?
Sorry?
Did we do the Dexter Lane agenda item already? I might have missed it.
Sorry.
The Dexter Lane.
Oh, the Dexter Lane, sorry. Dexter Lane was
withdrawn.
Withdrawn, thank you. That's the word. Apologies, yes. Item J was withdrawn. by the Affordable Housing Trust. Okay, so just on dates. So Steve and I have been looking at dates, and what we're thinking for August is to have our meeting on August 11th, which would be the second Tuesday, and that meeting would largely be devoted to the presentation of the working group results on the Iron Rail project for the select board to have sort of initial reaction and feedback. We would try to minimize other business and mostly devote the meeting to that. Likewise, on August 25th, we're proposing, excuse me, to have our goals and objectives meeting. And that meeting would be exclusively goals and objectives, so we would not have other business or public comment reports and so forth. It would be dedicated to goals and objectives. And then we would return to our usual cycle, so it would be the next week to go back to the first and third Tuesday. So regular meetings would resume September 1st and 15th with bringing the issue of the speed limits, reviewing how the speed limits have worked over the past year with the police chief would be one of the agenda items for September.
Can I tell you something about that?
Yes?
Yesterday, I'm over by like Harry Ballfield. You know where Harry Ballfield is?
Harry Ball? No.
What is that?
Pingree?
What is, it's the exit on 128 that takes you into
22?
north, yeah, 22.
Yeah, I don't know the name of the field, but
So I was going from 22, coming from the Y, and, I get onto, I have to start driving 25 miles an hour. I see there's a person, like, it's a VW, right up against the back of my car, and I'm like, oh, jeez. So I pull into the liquor store, and the VW pulls into the liquor store. And this, I don't know how old she was, like 30-year-old woman, just starts swearing at me. Like, I couldn't believe it. Because, why were you driving 25, 26, 7 miles an hour? I said, well, I'm a select person on the board. I can't be driving around, like, violating the speed limits. And she goes, whoever elected you to this left? Oh my God. And then I just started laughing at her and walked away.
Wow.
yikes.
Yikes.
Someone had a bad day.
Whew. So we will discuss speed limits, and it will be open for public comment. But that is the current plan. Does that schedule?
So that's the 11th and the 25th, is that?
Correct, for August, and then back to the 1st and 3rd Tuesdays.
Zoom type of month for me.
That's okay.
Okay.
But you can do it just on Zoom.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just not too fast.
Just at 25 miles an hour.
Then with the puns.
I think
The
we're ready.
signs.
That's all I have.
All right, so I moved to
Oh.
adjourn.
I just,
Hold on.
this maybe wants to go in the record or not, but Ben just texted, he must have been watching from home. The ZBA for this notice would be a 14-day minimum.
14-day?
Yeah,
Oof.
posting requirement.
Wow,
It has to, there's a advertising publication, so it's gotta go in the newspaper. So it actually has to be in the newspaper for 14 days. That means it
Whoa.
would probably take us, best case would be 14 plus 3, because the Hamilton Wenham News runs on, is it Friday or Saturday?
Yikes.
Not good.
Not good.
So, try again.
Try again.
I motion that we adjourn the July 21st Select Board meeting at 8:58, and we will meet again on August 11th.
Gary seconds.
All in favor? Gary?
Yes.
Finn?
Aye.
Deirdre, aye.
Yes, Peter.
All right, thank you and good evening.